All right. In 1942, at the height of the Second World War Pacific conflict, an Australian minesweeper, the HMAS Armidale, come under heavy artillery fire from a Japanese aircraft off the coast of what we now know as Timor-Leste. It's this day, 77 years ago, and the actions of one 18-year-old Tasmanian, Edward Teddy Sheean, that's now the cause of considerable debate amongst our most senior defence and political leaders. Last month, an attempt to have Teddy posthumously awarded a Victoria Cross was knocked back, with the Defence Minister Linda Reynolds saying a 2019 review by the Defence Honours and Awards Appeals Tribunal, and I'll quote them here, did not present any new evidence that might support reconsideration of the Valor Inquiry's recommendation. Well, that might have been the end of it, but support for Teddy's VC continued despite the Defence Minister, and the Prime Minister has now intervened to set up a special expert panel to look again at Teddy's nomination. Ahead of this expert panel reporting back, though, I wanted more Australians to hear of Teddy's heroism, and I'm very pleased to say we're joined now by his nephew, Mr. Gary Ivory, live from Launceston in Tasmania. Thanks so much for your time tonight, Gary. Before we get into the history about how we got to where we are today with the PM's announcement of this new expert panel, let's go back to 1942, 77 years ago, as I said. I want you to tell my viewers what you know about your uncle's heroism, indeed self-sacrifice, that day as the Armidale came under attack.
Yes. Yes, on the 1st of December 1942, the Armidale was attacked by 12 Japanese aircraft, three aerial torpedo aircraft and 9 fighter planes. Torpedo hit the side of the Armidale and a few seconds later, another one hit the other side and the order was given to abandon ship. Teddy Sheean was at the side of the ship ready to jump into the motorboat beside 2 of his companions, which I've spoken to over the years, now passed away. He was at the side of the ship. He saw his mates getting strafed in the water. He decided he'd go back and do something about it. He went back, strapped himself into the aft Oerlikon gun and started firing. He brought down 1 plane and damaged another 2. By that, he helped save 49 of his mates' lives. And he knew when he strapped himself into the gun, that was it. He was going to die. And I think that, in all cases, is worthy of a Victoria Cross.
You know, it's not easy to be awarded a Victoria Cross, and nor should it be. You know, it's the highest award we have. It's conspicuous gallantry, it's daring, it's preeminent acts of valour, it's self-sacrifice, it's all those things that are usually mentioned there in citations. So it's a big decision to review a serviceman's consideration of the award, and particularly to push for the highest award of all. When did you start this campaign to see your uncle recognised for this extraordinary valour? What motivated you to seek, as you said, justice for Teddy Sheean?
I read the book, because our family never spoke about it all that much. And I read the book by Frank Walker, The Ship That Had to Die, and this was in '88. And I then thought, well, how come he never got a Victoria Cross? And ever since then, it's over 32 years ago, I've been fighting for this injustice to be rectified. And before me, though, well, those my uncles and aunties were trying, but they weren't privileged to the Freedom of Information Act that I was.
So just on that point, you know, what sort of documentation and information have you got about your uncle's history that's different than perhaps earlier family members received?
I've got recorded interviews with survivors talking about Teddy's deed, and the survival aspect of the Armidale was unbelievable too. They were in the water for 9 days, and when they came back to Australia, because the hierarchy didn't want to panic the southern states of Australia, the Japanese were into the northern states of Australia. They were told to hush up and not talk about the Armidale ordeal, and that in itself was the start of why nothing was acted on in the early days.
Yeah, why it was buried away. My grandfather was wounded about that same time in New Guinea, and I know there was a cloak of secrecy that was put around him when he returned home, and he, like your family, didn't talk at all about what went on. I think it was very different times. The PM appears sympathetic to a review of the Defence Minister's decision to back in the review, or the expert panel that previously had knocked him back. This new expert panel will be chaired by former Minister for Defence and the former Director of the Australian War Memorial, Brendan Nelson, a terrific bloke, I know him well, former Solicitor General David Bennett, someone who headed up the Prime Minister's Cabinet at some time, and an historian from the New South Wales Anzac Memorial. Now, given the calibre of this expert panel, do you feel your uncle might finally get some justice here?
I'm very, very hopeful that justice does come my uncle's way, because if anyone deserves a Victoria Cross in my mind, it's Teddy Sheean. Now, in 2019, we did a hearing with the tribunal that was put together, I might add, by this government, and they came back with a unanimous decision for Teddy Sheean to be awarded the Victoria Cross, and because the Prime Minister at that stage knocked it back. So I couldn't work out why that happened in the first place, but at least, to be fair to him, he's had a lot of discussions with my good friend and help, Guy Barnett, and Guy and the Prime Minister had a long discussion last week, and the Prime Minister went away and said he'd think about it, and then he came back with this. So at least it's something, and we look forward to getting it all across again.
Yeah, look, extraordinary acts of valour by your uncle, and I have a lot of faith in Brendan Nelson that will land at the right decision. I wish you well. I know a lot of Australians support you in this cause. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Gary.
Thank you very much, Peter. I really appreciate it.